Hi, this is Mark from M Solar Power with the first episode in our solar education series. And today's episode is going to be about understanding your solar inverter's battery. And what we've got really is there are two functions that batteries can do. The first thing that we use them for is we use them to save money. We use them to store excess solar power, which we can retrieve later. And the second function is we use them for backup power. And these two needs are directly opposed to each other. In the first instance, we want to drain our battery. And in this example here, we've got a battery at 95%. And on our Solar X triple power batteries, the battery is 90% usable, and basically that means the last 10% is unusable. And what we're trying to do is to take our batteries down from typically when they're full in the evening down to 10% in order to not draw any power from the grid. And only once the batteries have reached 10%, then our systems will automatically start drawing power from the grid. This, however, is directly opposed to backup power, because for backup power, we want to have our battery capacity available for when there's load shedding. And if load shedding occurs and we've already used our battery, we're unhappy that we don't have any power on hand. So what I've done is I've created this document, which I'm going to link in the YouTube description, and just go through the different options of how you can set your battery in the different modes. So I'm just going to tab across to the document, and this is the document that I've got working on in the background. And so the first paragraph here really is just what I've spoken about, and then the second portion is around battery basics. Now, on our Solar X hybrid systems, as I mentioned, the batteries are 90% usable, and what that means is by default they're set with a minimum capacity of 10%. And you can see this here from the phone screen, and you can see this screenshot here from the inverter screen. This percentage is not to be changed, because if you change it, for example, to 30% in this case, once the inverter reaches 30% state of charge and it's load shedding, the inverter is not going to supply you any more power, because in essence you've told it switch off at 30%. This is the minimum percentage that I want to drain my battery to. So please don't change the setting, don't change the capacity at all, and also the amperage is here below. I've had some clients where they've changed this, say, to 2 amps, and then there's no or very little power available for when there's load shedding, because the battery can't dish out more than 2 amps. So I just wanted to chat a little bit further in connection with the different types of modes. So the first mode is the mode that I touched on earlier, is self-use. And in self-use mode, we are trying to, and this mirrors the app in your phone, we are trying to use all of the battery power available. And in other words, we're trying to have maximum money savings. We want to draw our battery down to 10%, and we want to reduce the money that we spend on the utility. So in other words, we drain our battery before we draw any power. And in the summer months, it's really enjoyable because I draw very little power from the grid, as I've always got excess power left in the morning. In the winter months, during the solar winter, then typically on a cold, cloudy day, then I won't fill our batteries, and I'll have to supplement about half my power with power from the grid. So what you can see at the moment is we've been having some load shedding in Cape Town, and it's been a very cold period with lots of rain and a cold front passing through for about 4 days. So I've set my battery to forced time use, which I'll come back to in a second, which allows me to charge my battery to have power in reserve for backup from the grid as the sun is not doing the job. So in self-use mode, if I select self-use mode and I select save, I'm going to write that setting to my inverter, and I've now changed my inverter to self-use mode. So now it's automatically going to change me back to money-saving mode, and I'm going to start drawing power from the battery. It's nighttime while I'm recording this video, so immediately I'm going to be taking power out of my battery. One of the most common questions I get is, I've got my system in self-use, and why is my battery not charging during the day? Firstly, what your system will do is it will fill, oh, sorry, let me try that again. Firstly, what it will do is it will power the needs of your home first, and then excess power is stored in the battery. And in this mode, it can't charge from the grid at all. So typically, we set our systems to self-use, and the purpose of this mode is for maximum money saving. The second scenario, or the second option that SolarX provide, is they provide a backup mode. And in backup mode, the stance of the inverter changes. Basically, if we click down our work mode here and we change our inverter to backup mode, and we write that setting to the inverter changes its stance and it changes its priority. Its goal is now is to have the maximum amount of battery power available because we're in high levels of load shedding. And if you get a load shedding alert, that's the easiest thing that you can do, is just change your system to backup mode, and voila, it will automatically start putting any available solar power into your battery and not worry about powering your home and feeding excess power to the grid. So that's really easy to do, and in this document I've got links to the videos, which basically we just show you how to do that on the keypad of the inverter. So what SolarX do for us is they do something that allows us to sit on the fence to get the best of both worlds. So what we typically do is when we commission a system and we install it, we set the system into self-consumption mode with a caveat. The caveat being we have a minimum grid tie limit set. And what a minimum grid tie limit does is it's the minimum that it will allow you to draw the battery down when the grid is there, when your inverter is tied to the grid. In other words, when there's no load shedding. And so typically by default, what we do for our clients is we set our minimum grid tie limit to 30%. And by doing this, we leave 20% of the power in the battery in reserve for unexpected load shedding, and we leave the other 70% available for money-saving solar, and I highly recommend this. What we typically do is when Eskom announces load shedding and we've got higher load shedding occurrences happening, we change the stance, we increase the reserve limit. So this is a photograph from my inverter screen. I've changed my reserve limit to 80% because at the moment my priority is having power and not saving money. So SolarX give us, just to recap, they give us three fantastic different options. We have self-use, and if I just pop back to the app, and it's really easy to change this on your phone or directly from your internet monitoring. We have self-use available, and that is going to maximize our savings. We have backup mode available, which is going to give us the maximum amount of backup power available. We have the option of setting a minimum grid tie limit and self-use that allows us, and I know this sounds a bit confusing, but it allows us the best of both worlds. And lastly, if it's an emergency and we're really short of power, we can charge our battery from the grid. And basically it's like setting an alarm clock of when you want to charge your system from the grid. And I've got a video linked below for how you do that. So there's incredible options available. Please don't set and fiddle with your inverter if you don't feel comfortable or you're not sure on what you're doing, then just leave it in the default mode where we've left backup power available for you. And there's an incredible freedom, but with freedom comes responsibility. If you change your inverter settings and you have set them incorrectly, in other words, you set your minimum battery percent, say for instance, to 90% or 80%, then your inverter is going to switch off at 80 or 90% because you've instructed it to do so, and there's no way of repowering it at that point to adjust the setting until the grid comes back. So please reach out if you have any further questions. I've created this document with the video links associated, which I'll link in the description below. And thank you for tuning in, and I wish you many happy years of being empowered by the sun.